Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
I got two videos, and they're going to be talking about some developments here with the Trump, Epstein, Ghislaine scandal thing here that's erupting here. So let's go to that. We'll discuss it on the other side.
It is an undisputed fact right now that Donald Trump is covering up his dark and sick past behavior. And there's a major development this week that's also explaining why Donald Trump likely directed Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, his number one and number two at the DOJ, to say that the Epstein list doesn't exist and to shut down the investigation and to shut down the efforts to release the Epstein files. And that is the United States Supreme Court is getting ready to hear the final appeal opportunity by one of Donald Trump's former best friends, Ghislaine Maxwell, who sex trafficked for Jeffrey Epstein. She was convicted in connection with the trafficking and basically put in jail or prison for the rest of her life. She's appealing that conviction and that prison sentence, and now it's going all the way up to the Supreme Court. And according to the Daily Mail and other sources, she says that she's got the list, she's got the files, she wants to drop names, and she's willing and able and ready to do it, depending on if a deal can be worked out with the Trump regime and the Trump DOJ. So we need to follow what's going on in the Ghislaine Maxwell criminal appeal all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. This is the headline right now from the Daily Mail. This is their exclusive. Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell is ready to reveal the truth of the pedophile client list, says insiders. So why are Republicans blocking her? Adam Cochran explains it as thus. Well, there you go. Maxwell is appealing to the Supreme Court. Sources who have spoke on her behalf to news outlets in the past say she's ready to share the Epstein list in exchange for a non-prosecution deal. She's signaling to Trump she's ready to talk, and if the Supreme Court appeal doesn't go her way, she'll release the trial unless something is worked out. This is likely why he is suddenly so desperate to bury the list. If the list is, quote, fake or doesn't exist, then Maxwell's trial was on false grounds and false pretext, and she'd be eligible for a retrial where a lot of evidence was thrown out. There is a genuine chance that she now may be able to walk as a result of Donald Trump saying that the Epstein list doesn't exist and that there are no Epstein files. Let me break that down so you understand it. So at first, Donald Trump's Department of Justice, it was actually Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, who became the number two, the deputy attorney general. He works directly under the attorney general, Pam Bondi, and they released that memo, which he said they released with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, the FBI director and deputy FBI director, respectively saying that there is no Epstein list, there are no Epstein files, and the FBI shutting down all of its investigative work. So then the MAGA people were freaking out, and they were pissed off. They were saying, why'd you bring the MAGA influencers to hold up phase one Epstein list binders? Why'd you say you had the Epstein list on your desk, Pam Bondi? Why have all of these MAGA influencers been grifting off of the release of the Epstein files? And now you're saying it doesn't even exist. So were you lying about a list to cover up for pedos and for sex traffickers? I mean, that's what you were doing. Or does this list exist and Trump is covering it up because he's on the list? We all know that Donald Trump is deeply connected to Jeffrey Epstein. I've done numerous videos on that, right? But then on Saturday, Donald Trump does that post where Trump says the files do exist. Remember, he says they do exist, but it is a Democratic hoax, he says, and Obama and Hillary Clinton and James Comey and others created the files as part of a massive hoax to hurt Donald Trump and to hurt Republicans. Now, the MAGA Republicans weren't buying that, but I just want you to put yourself in the shoes now of Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, she's been convicted in a trial where all of this evidence was introduced about her aiding and abetting Epstein's conduct, and that there was a list, and that they were involved in all of these things together, and involved in sex trafficking together. And by the way, a lot of what went down at Mar-a-Lago. More on that in a moment. So now one of the arguments that she'll be able to make, and she'll go, the president of the United States is now saying that the Epstein situation is a hoax, that it isn't real, that it was made up by Democrats, by Obama and Clinton, and that none of this is real. And so she'll say, if the president of the United States is making public statements that none of this is real, I should have been able to introduce that at my criminal trial. I wasn't. I deserve a retrial. So is Donald Trump, you make the connection now? By saying that, could Donald Trump be helping Ghislaine get the retrial? And that will silence her from releasing the list if the United States Supreme Court does not grant her her appeal to reevaluate her sentencing or to overturn her conviction. You see how that works? And I mean, it's a horrific thing that Donald Trump's post may now allow Ghislaine Maxwell to get a retrial. What it also is allowing, not may, but is that you have Prince Andrew, who was previously basically banned from coming to the United States. Andrew's now able to head to the United States. He's one of the people on the list that Donald Trump claims doesn't exist. He was one of the people with Ghislaine Maxwell. He was being investigated in his connections with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And now he's out and about partying. He's like, woohoo, I'm going to go to the United States now. I can go wherever because Trump and the FBI just did me a solid. I am free, no longer have to worry about any of this. I have a basic question. You know, Donald Trump is Doe 174 in connection with a lot of these civil cases against Epstein. He's numbered Doe 174. So if there's Doe 174, wouldn't there be 173 and 175 and 1, 2, 3, 4? So wouldn't that be a list of people? I mean, just right then and there. And I've done this analysis over and over again, but for those just watching for the first time, let me just do it super quickly. About 10% of all of the Epstein files have been released. There's about 90% that hasn't, because there have been civil and criminal cases where the judge has released some things. From that 10%, I would say if you run it through ChatGPT and say, what's the name of someone who's on those documents more than anybody else, you'd probably get the answer of Donald Trump. Why? In 2002, Donald Trump said Epstein's a great guy. He likes women on the younger side. Virginia Giuffre, who an underage girl who since recently died by suicide. She was underage at the time. She was trafficked from Mar-a-Lago. You had Ghislaine Maxwell, the sex trafficker for Epstein, went to Mar-a-Lago. Virginia Giuffre was working underage at Mar-a-Lago. And then Ghislaine Maxwell found her, brought her to Epstein, and she was sex trafficked. Here's what Virginia Giuffre had to say about being sex trafficked by Ghislaine. Here, play this clip.
Virginia Roberts was working in the spa at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach when British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell introduced her to multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein.
The training started immediately. I mean, it was everything down to how to give a blowjob, how to be quiet, be subservient, give Jeffrey what he wants. A lot of this training came from Ghislaine herself. And being a woman, it kind of surprises you that a woman could actually let stuff like that happen, but not only let it happen, but to groom you into doing it. And then there's Jeffrey who's telling you, I want it this way. No, go slower and don't do that.
Donald Trump is on Epstein's flight logs. And again, only a small portion have been produced, about 7 times. He's all over the Epstein depositions from victims of Epstein who had been sex trafficked by him. They said, look, we're going to the Trump Atlantic City and Epstein's calling Trump. At Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal trial, now a woman, but at the time an underage girl who was a Jane Doe. But when she was 14 years old, she said that Epstein and Ghislaine introduced her to Donald Trump. In 2024, Donald Trump used Epstein's jet for the 2024 Trump campaign. They just wrapped it in Trump 2024 letters. I can go, Doe 174, I can go on and on and on here. But here was Donald Trump at Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking case saying that he wishes her well when he was asked, what do you want to say to her? Here, play this clip.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and so a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well. Whatever it is, I don't know the situation with Prince Andrew. Just don't know. Not aware of it.
Mr. President. So then when he was asked by Axios, why'd you wish her well? I mean, she's a sex trafficker. Why wouldn't you wish her bad? I mean, why would you wish sex traffickers well? Here, play this clip.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is. Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
First of all, I don't know that, but I do know that.
She has. She's been arrested for that. You know that.
Her friend or boyfriend,
Epstein,
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that?
Oh, so you're saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
Her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her. I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
she's a child alleged child sex trafficker.
Big deal. But all it is her boyfriend died. He died in jail. Was he killed? Was it suicide? I do. I wish her well.
Yeah, that was another massive red flag right there. And by the way, Donald Trump's biographer, who was also going to be Epstein's biographer, but he never ended up writing the biography for Epstein, Michael Wolff, he recently sat down and did an interview, and he said, I've seen the photos with Trump and Epstein with the naked girls. I mean, he said he's seen them. Here, play this clip.
I know that these pictures exist, and I can describe them. There are about a dozen of them. The ones I specifically remember is two of them with topless girls of an uncertain age sitting on Trump's lap, and then Trump standing there with a stain on the front of his pants, and 3 or 4 girls kind of bent over in laughter. They're topless too, pointing at Trump's pants.
And then we had Michael Wolff on the Midas Touch, and he said, he goes, when I was interviewing Trump, I was specifically told you could basically talk to him about anything, but you can't talk to him about Epstein. If you talk to him about Epstein, he's not going to answer the questions. Here, play this clip.
No, and I think the thing you have to return to here is, I mean, Donald Trump has gotten away with literally everything. And it turns out to be one of his greatest gifts. And what is that? Because of it's the incredible advantage of utter shamelessness, or I remember Steve Bannon said to me once that if the famous P tapes were ever found, Trump would just say, that's not me. And it wouldn't matter if it looked like Donald Trump, if he walked like Donald Trump, it wouldn't matter. He would just deny it. And somehow, again, hiding in plain sight, this long relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and Trump has just waved it away, swept it under the rug, ignored it, and gotten away with it. Does that change? I probably not, but maybe.
He is a master of distraction to distract people from all the problems he's created. And at the same time, he is distracted by this one question of maybe others, but this one for sure of Jeffrey.
I think it's a difficult question for him. I know once when I was, this was in Mar-a-Lago, I went to have a sit down with him. and his aides just asked me, a rough outline of what I wanted to talk about. And I had a lot of subjects, but I also said Epstein, and they said, if you ask about that, he'll just stop the interview and you won't get anything. So this person said, I recommend you can ask about anything, but I really recommend you not ask that if you hope for this interview to go on.
And of course, we also learned that during his first term, Donald Trump was considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. And by the way, it's not just Trump. Others in his administration have ties to Epstein as well. RFK Jr., here's what he had to say. Here, play this clip.
You weren't ever on Jeffrey Epstein's jet, were you?
I was on Jeffrey Epstein's jet 2 times. I was on it in 1993, and I was on it and I went to Florida with my wife and 2 children to visit my mom over Easter. My wife had some kind of relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and they offered us a ride to Palm Beach. So I went then, and on another occasion, I flew again with my family, with I think 4 of my children, and Mary, my wife, to Rapid City, South Dakota, to go fossil hunting for a weekend, but otherwise I was never on his jet alone. I've been very open about this from the beginning. This was in '93, so it was 30 years ago. It was before anybody knew about Jeffrey Epstein's his nefarious issues, and I agree with you that all of this information should be released. And we should get real answers on what happened to Jeffrey Epstein and any of the high-level political people that he was involved with. All of that should be open to the public. It should be absolutely transparent. And, I don't see why any of those records would have any redactions in them. Why would we be hiding that from the American public?
So this is a big development now, because the Supreme Court has the opportunity to hear Ghislaine Maxwell's case. We'll see what they do. That's going to be decided soon. Is she then, regardless of what the outcome is before the Supreme Court, does she now go and say, hey, I need a retrial? The President of the United States says that my entire case was a hoax and isn't real, and I got an unfair trial, because listen to what he has to say. I wonder if she goes in that direction, and does she now hold the list over his head, and Donald Trump effectively, is subservient, is going to whatever she wants to do, basically. So we will see. I'll keep you posted every step of the way. Subverting the word I was looking for was subverting his and the national interest in favor of someone who was convicted of sex trafficking. And then what about all of the victims out there? Anyway, hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Happy birthday, Smoke. Today's your birthday. You turn 4. See?
There is MAGA meltdown for the convicted felon Donald Trump. His MAGA supporters have finally found an issue they can't rubber stamp on his behalf, and he can't stand it. That's the Epstein files. And because he's a little cornered, caged animal right now, because he is guilty as sin of all of these things going on with Jeffrey Epstein, in my opinion, here's the post he made on Truth Social. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's nonsensical and unhinged, but the highlights are what's going on with my boys, and in some case, gals. Why would you say that? We're on Team MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect all caps administration. The talk of the world and selfish people are trying to hurt it. All over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over. Why are you giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with Russia, Russia, Russia hoax? Blah, 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 blah. He's unhinged. Let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great. And then it says, that's what she is looking into as AG and much more. 1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy, those two are capped, on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. Okay, so here we go. So is it, we don't have any files on Jeffrey Epstein. They don't exist, according to Pam Bondi, after she said the client list was on her desk. Or is it files prepared by Hillary and Obama and Comey and Brennan? Because those two things are in contradiction with oneself. So this, he thought, because Trump is a dipshit, he thought that this would make everybody shut up and leave him alone. But oh no, starting with Elon Musk. So Elon posts, seriously? He said Epstein a half a dozen times while telling everyone to stop talking about Epstein. Just release the files as promised. That's according to Elon Musk. And this is just beyond the pale of MAGA idiocy. Nobody can put together the dots. Epstein was arrested under Trump. He died in prison under Trump. Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted. She's in jail during her trial. Trump's names are all over the call logs and the flight logs. Nobody seems to know about that. And now he wants everybody just to shut up about it, even though that's all he talked about during the campaign was releasing these files. So then we've got Laura Loomer. And Laura Loomer, Scoop, FBI Director Cash, and at D. Bongino are livid with AG Pam Bondi over her DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding Jeffrey Epstein. Sources tell me Dan Bongino is taking the day off today from his job as deputy director of the FBI. And there's now speculation on whether or not he will return to his job at the FBI over his disgust with Bondi's lack of transparency and handling of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi has brought total embarrassment to President Trump, J.D. Vance, Dan Bongino, and Kash Patel. I'm told Kash and Bongino are furious with Bondi and the blowback she has caused them over her lack of transparency. Okay, I just want to set this straight for all the people in the back. I don't care if there's 15 AGs appointed by Trump. None of them will release the Epstein files because Trump is on the Epstein files. And over the weekend, you hear Bongino's going to quit. Bongino was fired. Bongino's back in the fold. It's impossible to know how a conspiracy theorist like Dan Bongino hasn't put two and two together. It's beyond me. I do not understand it. So then here comes Tucker Carlson. He has to put his voice in the mix.
I knew that. But the fact that the U.S. government, the one that I voted for, refused to take my question seriously and instead said, case closed, shut up, conspiracy theorist, was too much for me. And I don't think the rest of us should be satisfied with that. And by the way, let me just...
Okay, so in reference to the Epstein files, Tucker Carlson's out riling everybody up. At this same conference, Laura Ingraham from Fox News asked the crowd, how do you feel about the handling of the file? Are you satisfied? And everybody said no, like clapping, screaming. The MAGA base is in a complete free fall. Alex Jones, who last week was crying about the Epstein files. Now, mind you, he defamed parents of the Sandy Hook children that were murdered because he said it was fake and they did not really have their children murdered. They were making it all up. And he owes over $1 billion. He's lost his company over, but that's not today's discussion. Here's Alex Jones on this situation.
This is the big story, and this has put the Trump administration into a mega massive crisis. And Trump at press conferences and the rest of it saying, don't ask questions, triggers the ultimate Streisand effect and is insane. So I don't know where in the world they're coming up with that plan.
Okay, the Streisand effect is apparently Barbara Streisand tried to remove her Malibu house from a map or something. But here's the fundamental point. He and his followers and Tucker Carlson and all the MAGA base, they're not letting this go. And for the first time in Trump's presidency, 1.0 or 2.0, he's not able to say, what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears, it's not true. So everybody quit talking about Epstein. Well, he expected these MAGA morons to fall right in line. He didn't realize they were going to keep coming because dear leader has a huge problem. As Alex Jones put it, a massive crisis. Then we go to Benny Johnson, fresh off his visit to Alligator Alcatraz, where he purchased merch, which is deplorable. This is what he has to say about it.
Admitting that the Epstein files are real and have been written and that you've read them and you don't like their contents and they were written by your enemies doesn't make the most compelling case as far as I'm concerned. Holy moly.
I'm sorry. I just can't quit laughing because he's pointing out the obvious that I guess you have to point out to MAGA people that you can't say they don't exist and they're created by Hillary and Obama in your enemies list. And moving on, after we have Benny Johnson's meltdown, everybody, I don't know why they can't connect the dots, but here's a post from Ron Filipkowski, who I absolutely love. He says, just checked back in with his post on Epstein. I've been on Truth Social since day one and never seen anything like this. 40,000 replies, 99% negative towards Trump. The comments are just brutal. This isn't going away. So what that means is Trump posts this, make it go away. Nobody cares. We're not looking about Epstein. Quit talking about it. 40,000 people who usually love and like and tell, oh, sir, you're so great. They're now saying, no, we want accountability. So a few of these slides from Truth Social, the responses that Trump is getting, and it says, you are losing too many in your base. Mr. President, you did make the promise. Just saying. Curtis Jackson says, more gaslighting. I thought you were above this. That really sends me into orbit. You thought Trump was above gaslighting? Like, what hole have you dug yourself out of? And then to just put it all in perspective and say it in the most succinct way, we have from Georgia, Senator John Ossoff.
President Trump promised to end the wars. He promised to release the Epstein files. Did anyone really think the sexual predator president who used to party with Jeffrey Epstein was going to release the Epstein files?
I couldn't have said it better myself. That is exactly the point. The reason the Epstein files have not been released is because of Donald Trump's involvement with Epstein. And what really kills me about all this, of course, everybody on planet Earth is against sex trafficking. But what about the children that the lack of USAID food have died in the world's poorest country? What about them? What about the people that are being sent to concentration camps? What about the little girl with cancer that can't get treatment because she is in a detention center and going to be deported? Like, where is your empathy for that? I'm glad to know you still have empathy about child pedophilia, but there are a lot more things that damage children than just pedophilia. And in the words of Senator Ossoff, why did you think that you could elect somebody that palled around with Epstein, that has sexual abuse claims for decades, and think this was going to fix the problem? I don't get it. Please like this video. Please subscribe to our channel.
Well, okay. Thanks for watching all that. Now, this is what I think's going on here. Okay, I think that this whole thing starting, well, it hasn't really been starting. This has been going on for a long time, but it's been heating up now. And I think what's going on here is I think certain people have decided that the only way we can actually get Trump removed from office is to approach him from this angle, from this Epstein mess, okay? They're focusing on that. Aside from all the other things, they think this is the angle because this is the one that irritates MAGA the most, it looks, okay? Because these people are really pissed off about, Pam Bondi telling everybody that there's no files and all this. They blew up over that. So I think that certain people said, okay, well, this is where we need to go because this makes Trump look really bad, okay? It makes his administration look really bad, especially when you got Alex Jones out there crying and all and acting like a goddamn fool, okay, over this. You're hitting closer to the heart of MAGA. And the only way MAGA's going to turn on this man is if they diminish the man. They diminish the name, okay? If you can do that enough to the point where the base is clawing at each other, fracturing, coming apart, then it makes it much easier to then impeach this guy on a lot of things, okay? Because then his supporting base will be limited to practically gone, depending on how bad this stuff is about him and Epstein, okay? I think that's what's going on here, and it makes sense because, hey, look, MAGA's a cult, and in every cult, they always fall apart when the leader is shown to be false. Okay, when you make the leader look false, the cult dies, and this is how you bring down a cult. You have to attack the leader in the most deplorable way that matters to the cult. They don't want to be following a guy who's a pedophile, okay, sitting in the White House. You don't want to have a guy like that as a leader of your cult. I mean, take a look at all the cults in the past where that fell apart. It was always the leader that cracked up and shit and made everybody turn against them. That's when it was easy to go and take them down, okay? No different here, okay? MAGA has behaved like a cult for a long time over Donald Trump. He could do no wrong. None of the other things that he did wrong mattered to them, but this one thing does. They cannot stand behind a man who is possibly a pedophile, okay, who possibly is hip deep, neck deep maybe, in what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And now Ghislaine is saying, I have the list. Did they not think that she made copies of this list before she was sentenced? I mean, I think that, these people underestimated her. She probably had other lists or other files tucked away somewhere where no one would find them, and the ones that they picked up, that they grabbed or whatever, they weren't the only copies. And so now she's saying, I have the list. I have it. So that again throws more oil on Pam Bondi and her claim that, oh, there is no list, it was never there, it was, okay, because now she's saying in prison, Ghislaine, that she's got the list. She has it. It's probably somewhere hidden. They're not going to find it, okay? But she knows where it is, and now everybody's nervous because now it's really driving MAGA nuts now, okay? They're pissed off because now you got them turning on Pam Bondi. They're trying to lay it all on her for having come out and said what she said at that presser. So now MAGA is starting to turn on her. And I knew, I remember I said way back, like in February, that, before it's all said and done, they're going to end up throwing her under the bus, okay? Just like everybody who's ever gone to bed with Trump always ends up getting roasted, okay? They always end up getting sacrificed. Everybody. Look, even Elon Musk. You even got Musk out there, contributing, putting more wood on the fire. I mean, come on, everybody that he does business with, everybody. He burns in the end, okay? So, this is what's going to happen. I mean, Pam Bondi is either going to leave or something, or resign, or whatever, or Trump is simply just going to fucking dump her, And I don't see how, anything else could happen out of this. It's not going to do him any good. I mean, Nixon did that. He was firing everybody left and right in his fucking cabinet there that was not on his side. But in the end, he ended up having to leave because he was cutting off all other avenues of where the shit was leading. It was still pointing directly to him. So it made him look more and more guilty every time he did that, you see. So this is no different. Trump is going to end up probably dumping Pam Bondi, saying, oh, she's leaving, too much pressure or whatever, whatever the hell reason. Okay, but it's really going to be punishment for having opened her yap and said what she said about, oh, there aren't any files and all that stuff, okay? Which we all know was a fucking lie. They were saying all this time they had this information, okay? And now they're going around saying, well, the information was constructed by the Democrats. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that the information is that was there was made by the Democrats and then turn around and say, oh, well, we never had anything. Okay, you either had it or you didn't. Okay, and this is the conundrum MAGA finds itself in, because there's no way to defend that. There's no way to defend that, and so they're forced to have to come to the conclusion that yes, he is hiding something. Okay, they're having to actually regurgitate what Democrats have been saying all along. Yes, he's involved in this in such a way that concerns him so bad that he's got people out there actively trying to prevent this information from getting out. Okay, and now even if he releases something and it's got redactions in it, that's only going to make the suspicion more. So, you see what Trump's done is he's actually boxed himself into a really tight corner now, and there's very little he can do to wiggle out of this thing. And even no matter what he does, people saying, oh, Ghislaine better watch her back. Even if she just suddenly disappears, hangs herself or something like that, again, that's going to feed into the perception MAGA has already created now that Trump is hiding something. So you see, Trump can't do anything at this point. He can't do anything. They got him right in a corner now, and you could see he's getting pissed. There's infighting going on behind the scenes. I'm sure a lot of it we're not hearing about, but I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of fighting and arguing, and I bet a lot of spaghetti being thrown on the walls. Okay. But Trump, he's not a guy that likes to be under pressure. And right now, I would imagine he's under a lot, because, see, he deliberately got into the White House just so he could avoid prison. But if things keep going in this direction for him, prison may be exactly where he ends up anyway. Okay? And everyone's going to clap and applaud it when he's in there, because he's losing his support. His supporters are backing off on him. They're not willing to go across that line by defending a possible pedophile. So this is going to get really interesting, I'm going to say. It's going to get really interesting in the coming weeks, what's going to happen. Like I said, the Supreme Court, Ghislaine wants to have a retrial, because she says, well, if they don't have any files to prove anything that they said that I was involved in, then I should have a retrial. Okay? And the last thing that the Republicans, or at least MAGA or Trump wants, I'm not going to say MAGA, the last thing Trump wants is for her to be out and free. Okay? Then she becomes more dangerous than she was in prison. Okay? And I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do, if they're going to continue to run protection for Trump or not. I don't know. That's really the wild card here in this, is what the Supreme Court do. Because if they do this, if they say, okay, we're going to give her, we're going to wipe away the trial she was in, we're going to do a new trial. Okay? That's going to be the trial of the fucking century in every fucking way. Because we're talking about a trial that involves the President of the United States. And one of the worst moral crimes, you know, a person could do with kids. Okay? That's a nasty, nasty fucking trial. It's gonna make the OJ case look like a fucking mild fart on Capitol Hill. Okay, it's not going to be nice. And you know it's gonna be a dirty fucking trial. It's gonna be fought, you know, in every fucking way Trump can in order to dodge that bullet. Because like I said, he invested heavily in getting back into the White House. He made a lot of promises to get back in the White House just so he could dodge prison. And, you know, if everything goes according to the way it's going, you know, and America gets lucky, prison is where he'll end up at the end of the day. He won't just be impeached, or removed from office. He'll get an orange suit to match his skin, and he'll be marched into a prison, you know. And he could sit there and bitch and holler and scream and write his little books here, Mein Kampf, for whatever the hell he wants to do while he's in prison. Okay, but yeah, it's not looking good. This is heating up here, and everything that goes on with the Trump administration, it just heats up quick. Every week something new comes out, you know, and it's been following steady, true to form. I mean, you could almost map this administration out from day one. It's incredible, I'll tell you. But look, for people like me, I already am convinced that he was involved with the sex trafficking thing. Okay, I have no problem believing that he did this. No problem at all. Because the guy, any man who could do what he's been doing as a president, especially the first time when he got over 1 million Americans killed by telling them to drink bleach and all that other shit when there was a real pandemic going on. Anybody that can do that as a president has no fucking soul, in my opinion. So molesting little kids would be nothing for him. That would be like drinking Kool-Aid or something on a hot day. Okay, this guy would easily do that. And the things that he said about his daughter over the years, you know, about how he'd like to bang her and shit like that, okay, or words to that effect. Hey, nobody in their fucking right mind, even in MAGA, for Christ's sake, would ever go out in public on camera and say shit like that and expect that everybody's going to find it, oh, it's funny. Not in this country. No, it ain't funny. We're supposed to be a Christian country here, and, you know, people don't like pedophiles. I mean, we hate the shit out of them. We even want to know where they are when they're living somewhere, okay? So we don't like that. But he goes around and he talks about it, you know, like it's nothing, like everybody's into it. Okay, so this is a guy who is going to have to learn a lesson a very hard way. Okay, that yeah, you may be wealthy and you may be the president, but there are some things that even the country can't stand. Okay, and you forgot what kind of a country you're living in. You're living in a country that considers itself Christian, and by that regard, the people living in this country are going to judge you on that basis. And if they look at you as someone who is the devil because you fiddled around with little girls and boys, you know, you're doomed. You're going down in flames no matter what. I don't care what kind of defense you bring up, because once your image is tainted and your name means mud in this country, hey, it's going to be very easy to impeach you then. No one's going to fucking care whether you know, what happens to you after. They're going to be looking for a new guy, a new person to represent the party. They're not even going to look at you anymore. You're going to be, you know, they don't even want to put you in the history books after that. They might even do something that I hope they do, is never to add his name on the list of presidents in this country, because Trump is not a president. He is a dictator. All right. And that's where he belongs. That's the label that should fit on him. in the history books, because he is not a president. He doesn't lead like one. He doesn't believe in the Constitution or the American way. He doesn't believe in any of that. So he can't be a president. And plus, he's a criminal. That, again, should have kept him from being president in the first place. But it seems like his criminality is going to catch up to him no matter what. And that all depends on how invested, you know, the powers that be are into making him answerable to what the hell he did with Jeffrey Epstein. So Epstein's reaching out from the grave, more or less, here to bring down his cohorts with him, because he's not going to go down alone. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.